My billionaire CEO Ex and his new wife tried to take my son. He didn't know I was an heiress. The courtroom went silent as Zahara rose from her seat. Jasper's lawyer had just finished painting her as a struggling single mother, unfit to raise the son she had loved for 8 years. Jasper sat smugly beside Amber, his new wife, confident that his billions would win him the child he had just discovered existed. Then Zahara spoke. "Your Honor, my ex-husband believes he can buy my son because I work in a small gallery. He thinks wealth equals power. What he doesn't know is that Sterling Dynamics, his precious empire, wouldn't exist without my family. The contracts that keep his company afloat. The bailout his grandfather received 3 generations ago. All of it came from Amani Omni Holdings. My family. My name. I am not the poor black woman he thinks he's crushing. I am Zahara Amani, and I own more of his world than he could ever imagine." Jasper's face went white. His hand gripped the edge of the table. Amber's perfectly painted lips parted in shock. And in that moment, everything he thought he knew shattered. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back. Back to the day Zahara's quiet life ended and the war began. Before we dive into this story, if you love tales of hidden power, unexpected twists, and watching the underestimated rise to reclaim what's theirs, you're in the right place. Hit that like button and subscribe to Love Tales by Mr. Grayson because trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. 10 years earlier, Zahara had walked away from Jasper Sterling with nothing but her dignity and a secret growing inside her. She had loved him once, deeply, the kind of love that makes you believe in forevers. They had met at a charity gala where her family's foundation was one of the silent sponsors. Zahara never told him about the Amani name, about the empire that stretched across continents, the wealth that could swallow his company whole. She wanted to be loved for herself, not for the legacy she carried. For 2 years, they were inseparable. Jasper was ambitious, driven, building Sterling Dynamics from a mid-tier tech firm into something formidable. Zahara worked at a small gallery, curating art, living simply. She never felt the need to flaunt wealth she had been taught to guard carefully. The Amani family had always operated in shadows, preferring influence over spectacle. But ambition has a way of consuming everything in its path. Jasper became obsessed with growth, with proving himself, with beating competitors who had more legacy and old money backing them. The late nights turned into missed dinners. The promises turned into apologies. And when Zahara told him she wanted more than a relationship scheduled between board meetings, he made his choice. "I can't do this right now, Zahara. Sterling Dynamics is at a critical point. I need to focus. Maybe we want different things." She had looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a man who would always choose the empire over the person. So she left. She never told him about the pregnancy. She never told him that the child he would never know was already an heir to something far greater than anything he was building. Zahara moved across the city, took a position at a small but respected gallery in a neighborhood where billionaires didn't usually look, and raised her son. Kian came into the world with eyes that held both her depth and his father's intensity. His mixed heritage was beautiful, a blend of her rich brown skin and Jasper's lighter complexion, his curls soft and wild, his spirit curious and bold. For 8 years, they built a life. A good life. Zahara never touched the Amani accounts. She lived off her gallery salary, found joy in the simple things, in Kian's laughter, in the art that surrounded them, in the freedom of being unknown. Her family respected her choice, though they checked in regularly through Mr. Okoro, the chief counsel of Amani Omni Holdings. "Miss Amani, your trust accounts remain available whenever you choose to access them. Your grandfather's seat on the board awaits you. You need only say the word." "Not yet, Mr. Okoro. Not yet." She thought she could stay hidden forever. She was wrong. The day the messenger arrived, Zahara was hanging a new exhibition. The gallery smelled of fresh paint and possibility. Kian was at school, probably charming his third-grade teacher with questions about everything from dinosaurs to the solar system. Life was peaceful, predictable, safe. The messenger wore an expensive suit and carried a leather portfolio that screamed high-end law firm. He approached her with the kind of professional courtesy that barely masked pity. "Ms. Amani, I have a delivery for you. Please sign here." She signed, not thinking much of it. Legal documents were not uncommon in the art world. Contracts, insurance paperwork, authenticity certificates. But when she opened the envelope, her world tilted. Petition for full custody. Sterling versus Amani. Superior Court. Her hands shook as she read the words. Jasper Sterling, petitioner. Seeking full physical and legal custody of minor child, Kian Amani, age 8. Grounds, better financial stability, two-parent household, superior educational and developmental opportunities. The paper slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the floor. 9 years. 9 years of silence, and now this. How did he even know? How did he find out about Kian? She pulled out her phone with trembling hands and dialed the one number she had avoided for nearly a decade. Mr. Okoro, I need you. Now. Across the city, in a penthouse office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline, Jasper Sterling stood with his arms crossed, looking every bit the conquering CEO the media loved to celebrate. Beside him, draped in designer clothing that cost more than most people's monthly rent, stood Amber. Amber was beautiful in the way that money could sculpt, blonde hair perfectly highlighted, skin maintained by the best dermatologists, body toned by private trainers. She had married Jasper 2 years ago, a union that looked perfect in magazines and felt hollow in private. She wanted things: status, legacy, control, and most recently, she wanted an heir. But her body had other plans. 3 failed IVF cycles, 2 miscarriages. The doctors were carefully optimistic, which meant they were politely pessimistic. And Amber was not a woman who accepted failure. When the private investigator she had secretly hired came back with information about a child, Jasper's child, born to some nobody gallery worker, Amber saw an opportunity. She presented it to Jasper carefully, like a business proposition, which is exactly how he understood the world. Darling, you have a son. A biological heir. Some woman you dated years ago kept him from you. Don't you think he deserves to know his father? Don't you think he deserves the Sterling name, the opportunities, the life we can provide? Jasper had been shocked at first, then angry, then calculating. A son. His legacy. Growing up in some modest neighborhood with a woman who had walked away from him without explanation. It felt like theft. It felt like something he needed to correct. He never asked himself if he wanted to be a father. He only knew he wanted what was his. His lawyer, a shark named Richard Pemberton, had laid it out simply. You have the resources, Mr. Sterling. You can provide stability, education, opportunities she simply cannot match. We paint her as well-meaning but limited. We emphasize your two-parent household, your financial superiority, your ability to provide. Judges favor stability. We make you the stable choice. And what if she fights? Then we make it expensive and exhausting. Most single mothers can't afford prolonged legal battles. She'll cave, or we'll win by attrition. Jasper signed the paperwork without hesitation. Amber smiled, already imagining the press releases, the photos, the narrative of the merciful CEO rescuing his son from poverty. They had no idea who they were actually fighting. Mr. Okoro arrived at the gallery within an hour. He was a tall, elegant man in his 60s, Nigerian by birth, educated at Oxford, and possessing a legal mind that had dismantled corporations and governments with equal efficiency. He had served the Amani family for 30 years and regarded Zahara with the affection of an uncle. He sat across from her in the small office at the back of the gallery, reading the custody petition with an expression that never changed but somehow radiated controlled fury. This is bold. Foolish, but bold. Zahara wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold together the panic threatening to break through. He found out about Kian. After all these years. How, Mr. Okoro? How? Most likely a private investigator. Your son is in school, visible, documented. If someone wanted to look, they would find him. The question now is not how, but what we do about it. I can't lose my son. I won't. Mr. Okoro set the papers down and looked at her with steady, serious eyes. Then it is time, Miss Amani. Time to stop hiding. Time to use what your family built. Your grandfather did not create an empire so that his descendants could be bullied by men like Jasper Sterling. Zahara closed her eyes. She had spent 9 years being just Zahara, just a mother, just a curator. The Amani name came with weight, with responsibility, with a loss of the simplicity she cherished. But Kian was worth everything. He was worth the world. What do I need to do? First, we respond to this petition with our own legal team. Not a small firm. The full force of Amani's legal department. Second, we begin gathering our own intelligence. If they investigated you, we investigate them. Third, and most importantly, you prepare yourself. This will not be quiet. This will become public. And when it does, you must be ready to stand as who you truly are. Zahara opened her eyes and met his gaze. Do it. All of it. Protect my son. Mr. Okoro nodded and pulled out his phone, making calls that would set a machine in motion, a machine with reach and resources that dwarfed anything Sterling Dynamics could muster. The first mediation session was held 2 weeks later in a neutral conference room designed to feel collaborative but only felt sterile. Zahara sat on one side of the table with Mr. Okoro and 2 other attorneys from Amani's firm. Across from her sat Jasper, Amber, and Richard Pemberton. It was the first time Zahara had seen Jasper in 9 years. He looked older, more polished, his suit custom-tailored, his watch worth more than a car. But his eyes were the same, sharp and calculating, always measuring value. He looked at her like she was a problem to solve. Amber sat beside him, perfectly composed, her hand resting possessively on Jasper's arm. She looked at Zahara with barely concealed disdain, the kind of look that said you are beneath me without needing words. Richard Pemberton opened the mediation with practiced smoothness. We're here today to discuss the best interests of the child, Kian. Mr. Sterling only recently discovered his son's existence and is eager to establish a relationship and provide for his future. We believe that a custody arrangement favoring Mr. Sterling's household is in Kian's best interest given the substantial resources and stability available. Mr. Okoro responded without missing a beat, his accent lending weight to every syllable. Miss Amani has been Kian's sole parent for 8 years. She has provided a loving, stable, enriching environment. Mr. Sterling's sudden interest, coinciding with his current wife's well-documented fertility challenges, raises questions about motive. Amber's jaw tightened. Jasper's eyes narrowed. My client's personal medical history is irrelevant and inappropriate to mention. It becomes relevant when it suggests the child is being pursued as a solution to a problem rather than a relationship to nurture. The room tensed. Jasper leaned forward, his voice hard. I have a right to know my son. She kept him from me. Zahara had been silent until now, but something in his entitlement broke through her composure. I left you, Jasper. You chose your company over everything else. I wasn't going to raise a child in the shadow of your ambition, waiting for scraps of your attention. His face flushed. You didn't give me a choice. You disappeared. I gave you every choice. You made it clear what mattered to you. And it wasn't me. The silence that followed was sharp enough to draw blood. Amber shifted uncomfortably. Richard cleared his throat. Perhaps we can discuss a proposed arrangement. Mr. Sterling is willing to offer a substantial financial settlement in exchange for primary physical custody, with Ms. Amani retaining visitation rights. Zahara felt the air leave her lungs. Visitation rights. For the child she had carried, birthed, raised, loved every single day of his life. They wanted to turn her into a visitor. No. The word came out quiet, but absolute. Ms. Amani, I would encourage you to consider the offer carefully. No. You are not buying my son. Jasper's expression hardened. This isn't about buying. This is about providing the best possible life for him. Look at what I can offer. The best schools. Travel. Opportunities. Stability. Can you honestly say you can give him the same? Zahara stood, her hands pressed flat against the table, her voice trembling with controlled fury. I give him love. I give him presence. I give him a mother who knows his favorite bedtime story and how he likes his toast, and what makes him laugh. You don't even know him. You just want to own him. Jasper stood as well, his height and presence meant to intimidate. Then let me know him. Let me be his father. You could have been his father 8 years ago if you had been capable of putting anything above your empire. You made your choice. I made mine. And my choice has always been Kian. We'll see what the court says. Yes, we will. The mediation ended with nothing resolved except battle lines drawn. As Zahara gathered her things, Jasper called out. Zahara. She turned. I will fight for this. I have resources you can't imagine. She looked at him for a long moment, something sad and knowing in her eyes. You have no idea what you've started. She walked out, Mr. Okoro beside her, leaving Jasper standing in the conference room wondering why her words felt less like a warning and more like a promise. If you're hooked on this story, show some love by hitting that like button and dropping a comment below. Tell me, do you think Zahara should reveal her identity now or wait? Let's discuss. That night, Zahara sat on the edge of Kian's bed, watching him sleep. His face was peaceful, one hand curled under his cheek, his breathing soft and steady. He had no idea that his world was about to become complicated, that adults were fighting over him like he was a prize instead of a person. She brushed a curl back from his forehead and made a silent promise. No matter what it cost, no matter what she had to reveal or sacrifice, she would protect him. The next morning, Mr. Okoro returned to the gallery with a folder. We've completed preliminary research on Sterling dynamics and the Sterling household. He laid out photographs and documents, financial records, corporate filings, and then the interesting pieces. Amber Sterling has significant personal debt despite her husband's wealth. Credit accounts in her name only, many in collections. She has also been in contact with representatives from Helix Corporation. Zahara frowned. Helix? They're one of Sterling's biggest competitors. Exactly. Which raises the question of why Mr. Sterling's wife is having private meetings with their acquisition team. You think she's working against him? I think her motives are not aligned with his best interests. Or your son's. What else? Sterling Dynamics is not as financially stable as their public image suggests. They are heavily leveraged, dependent on several key contracts to maintain cash flow. Contracts that, coincidentally, are serviced through subsidiaries of Amani Omni Holdings. Zahara looked up sharply. We have leverage over his company? Your family has always had leverage, Miss Amani. Your grandfather bailed out Sterling's grandfather during the recession of 1982. In exchange, Amani Holdings acquired silent partnerships in several of their supply chain entities. Sterling Dynamics survives because we allow it to. Jasper doesn't know this. Very few people do. The agreements were structured to be invisible, but they are ironclad. If we chose to activate certain clauses, we could cripple his business within a quarter. Zahara sat back, processing the information. All this time, Jasper had thought he was the powerful one. He had thought he was fighting a struggling single mother. He had no idea he was picking a fight with the very foundation his empire rested on. I don't want to destroy his company, Mr. Okoro. I just want to keep my son. Then we use the leverage strategically. We make him understand that this fight will cost him far more than he anticipated. We make the battle so expensive, so damaging, that he chooses to walk away. And if he doesn't, then we show him exactly who the Amani family is. And we show the world. Zahara nodded slowly. She had wanted to stay hidden, to keep her life simple. But Jasper had taken that choice away from her when he filed those papers. Prepare everything. I want to be ready for whatever comes next. Over the following weeks, the legal battle began to heat up. Richard Pemberton filed motions painting Zahara as financially unstable, socially isolated, unable to provide the advantages a child deserved. The arguments were carefully worded to avoid overt discrimination, but the subtext was clear. She was a single black mother working a modest job. They were a wealthy white couple with every resource imaginable. The media began to pick up the story. Billionaire CEO discovers secret son. Custody battle brewing. The optics were designed to favor Jasper, the wronged father seeking to do right by a child kept from him. Zahara watched the coverage with a tight jaw. They were writing her as the villain, or at best, the obstacle. Then the counter articles began to appear. Quietly at first, in smaller publications. Questions about Amber Sterling's finances. Whispers about Helix Corporation's interest in a hostile takeover. Mentions of Sterling Dynamics' dependence on contractors whose names meant nothing to most readers, but everything to industry insiders. The Amani machine had started moving. Jasper noticed. He called an emergency meeting with his PR team and his lawyers. Where is this coming from? Who's digging into Amber's finances? Who's leaking information about our contracts? Richard shuffled papers uncomfortably. We're investigating. But whoever is behind it has resources. Serious resources. Jasper slammed his hand on the table. She's a gallery curator. She doesn't have resources. Perhaps she has allies. Family. Benefactors. Find out. I want to know everything about Zahara Amani. Everything. Richard nodded and left to make calls. Amber stayed behind, her expression tight. This is getting messy, Jasper. Because someone is playing dirty. Or because you underestimated her. He looked at his wife sharply. What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe this woman isn't as helpless as you assumed. Maybe you should have asked more questions before starting a war. You're the one who wanted this. You're the one who found out about Kian and pushed me to file for custody. I wanted a child, Jasper. An heir. I didn't want a public relations nightmare that threatens everything we've built. He studied her, something cold settling in his chest. Are you having second thoughts? I'm having realistic thoughts. If this gets worse, if whoever is helping her decides to go nuclear, we could lose more than a custody case. We could lose everything. That won't happen. But his voice lacked the certainty he wanted it to have. The breakthrough came when Jasper's investigator finally traced Zahara's background beyond the surface level. What he found made him call Jasper immediately. Mr. Sterling, you need to see this. They met at Jasper's office. The investigator spread documents across the desk. Zahara Amani, age 34, graduated from Spelman College, master's in art history from Columbia, worked at various galleries before her current position. No significant assets in her name. No property. No investment accounts. She lives modestly, pays her bills on time, and by all appearances is exactly who she seems to be. Then what am I looking at? The investigator pointed to a name on a corporate filing. Amani Omni Holdings. It's a private conglomerate. Very private. No public stock. No press. But their holdings are massive. Real estate. Manufacturing. Tech investments. Including several companies in your supply chain. Jasper frowned. What does this have to do with Zahara? The company was founded by Arthur Amani in 1952. His son, Kofi Amani, expanded it globally. Kofi had one child, a daughter named Zahara. The room went very still. You're telling me Zahara is connected to Amani Omni Holdings? Not connected. She is Amani Omni Holdings. As the sole surviving heir, she controls the entire entity. Mr. Sterling, your company exists on contracts with Amani subsidiaries. The woman you're suing for custody could, with a single board vote, dismantle your supply chain. Jasper sat down heavily, his mind racing. The modest gallery, the simple apartment, the quiet life. It was all a facade. Or worse, it was real, and she had chosen simplicity over the empire she controlled. Either way, he had just declared war on someone who could destroy him without breaking a sweat. How do we not know this? Because they're very, very good at staying invisible. Old money. Real power. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself. Jasper ran a hand through his hair, his carefully constructed confidence crumbling. Does she know? About the contracts? About the connections? If she didn't before, she definitely knows now. And Mr. Sterling, the counterattacks, the media leaks, the sudden scrutiny on your business, that's not a coincidence. That's her. He looked at the documents, at the name Amani repeated across industries and continents. He had thought he was reclaiming his son from a woman who had nothing. Instead, he had picked a fight with a titan who had been hiding in plain sight. What do I do? The investigator closed his folder. That's above my pay grade. But if it were me, I'd find a way to make peace before she decides to stop playing nice. Jasper sat alone in his office long after the investigator left, staring at the city lights below. He thought about the mediation, about Zahara's calm fury, about her final words. You have no idea what you've started. She had been telling the truth. Meanwhile, Zahara was having a very different conversation. She stood in a private room at an exclusive members club, the kind of place that didn't have a sign and didn't need one. Around a table sat the board of Amani Omni Holdings. 5 people who controlled billions and shaped industries without ever appearing in Forbes lists. Mr. Okoro stood beside Zahara as she addressed them. I know I've stayed away from this table for a long time. I wanted a different life. A simpler life. But circumstances have changed. My son is being threatened, and I need the full support of this family to protect him. An elderly woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, Aunt Remy, spoke first. You are blood, Zahara. This family protects its own. What do you need? I need to send a message. Jasper Sterling thinks wealth is power. I need him to understand that real power is legacy, strategy, and the ability to move pieces he doesn't even know are on the board. A younger man, her cousin Martin, grinned. So we're going to war? We're going to educate. And if education requires demonstration, then yes. We go to war. The board voted unanimously. The Amani family would stand behind Zahara. And Jasper Sterling was about to learn a lesson that business school never taught. The full weight of the Amani response hit Sterling Dynamics like a financial hurricane. Audits were announced on 3 subsidiary companies. Environmental compliance reviews were triggered on 2 manufacturing plants. A key contract came up for renewal early due to a clause buried in the fine print, and the renewal terms were suddenly far less favorable. Jasper's CFO came to him with a spreadsheet that looked like a crime scene. We're hemorrhaging cash. The audits alone are costing us millions in legal fees and halted production. If we lose the Sentinel contract, we're looking at a 20% revenue drop this quarter. How is this happening all at once? I don't know. It's like someone coordinated every regulatory body and contract holder to move simultaneously. Jasper knew exactly who. He called Richard Pemberton. We need to settle. Now. Mr. Sterling, we're in a strong position for the custody case. I don't care about strong positions. That woman is dismantling my company piece by piece. Offer her joint custody. Offer her whatever she wants. Just make this stop. Richard hesitated. Sir, If we back down now, it looks weak. If we don't back down, there won't be a company left to look weak from. Do it. But Zahara was not interested in settlement. Not anymore. Mr. Okoro brought her the offer, and she read it with cold eyes. Joint custody. Shared decision-making. Financial support. He thinks he can negotiate now? It is a significant climb down from his original demand for full custody. It's not enough. He tried to take my son. He painted me as unfit in the media. He weaponized his wealth against me. Now he wants peace because he's finally realized he picked the wrong fight? What would you like to do? I want the custody hearing. I want it public. I want him to stand in front of a judge and face exactly who he's been attacking. And then I want to walk away with full custody and a restraining order that keeps him from using Kian as a prop for his ego. Mr. Okoro allowed himself a small smile. As you wish, Miss Amani. We'll see him in court. The hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks out. In that time, Jasper's world continued to crumble. Amber, sensing the sinking ship, became distant and cold. The board of Sterling Dynamics was asking hard questions about why their CEO's personal life was jeopardizing company stability. And through it all, Jasper kept thinking about Kian, the son he had never met, the child he had reduced to a legal battle and a piece of property to acquire. One evening, against Richard's advice and without telling Amber, Jasper went to Kian's school. He waited across the street, just watching. He saw Zahara arrive to pick him up, saw a boy with curly hair and bright eyes run to her, laughing about something that had happened in class. He saw her kneel down to his level, listening intently, her whole face lit up with love. He saw what a mother looked like, what presence looked like, and he realized he had no idea how to be what that child needed. A few days before the hearing, Zahara received an unexpected call. It was Jasper, not his lawyer. Him. Zahara, I need to talk to you. In person. Just the two of us. She almost refused. But something in his voice, a crack in the armor, made her curious. 1 hour. The park near the gallery. Tomorrow at noon. She told Mr. Okoro, who insisted on having security nearby. She agreed, but when she met Jasper on a park bench the next day, they were alone. He looked tired, worn in a way that expensive suits couldn't hide. Thank you for meeting me. You have 59 minutes left. Talk. He took a breath. I saw him. Kian. I went to his school. I didn't approach him. I just watched. I saw you pick him up. I saw how he looks at you. You were stalking my son? No. Yes. I don't know. I just needed to see him, to understand what I was actually fighting for. And I realized I have no idea how to be his father. I know how to build companies. I know how to win deals. But I don't know him. I don't know his favorite color, or what makes him laugh, or what scares him at night. You do. You know everything. Zahara's expression didn't soften. You're realizing this now? After dragging me through court? After trying to paint me as unfit? After weaponizing your wealth and your privilege against me? I was angry. I was told I had a son that was kept from me. I reacted. You reacted like I was a business competitor, not the mother of your child. You tried to buy him, Jasper, like he was another acquisition. I know. And I'm sorry. The apology hung in the air. Zahara studied him. This man she had once loved, now hollowed out by his own ambition. Why are you really here? Because I'm going to lose. The hearing is in 3 days, and I'm going to lose. Your lawyers will destroy me. You'll get full custody, and I'll be lucky to get supervised visitation. And the worst part is, I'll deserve it. Yes, you will. But before that happens, I need to know. Why didn't you tell me? 9 years ago, when you found out you were pregnant, why didn't you give me a chance? Zahara was quiet for a long moment. Because I knew who you were. I knew your ambition would always come first. I didn't want my child to grow up feeling like an obligation penciled in between board meetings. I wanted him to be loved completely or not at all. So I chose for him to be loved completely. That wasn't your choice to make alone. You made the choice when you chose Sterling Dynamics over us. I just acted on it. Jasper nodded slowly, accepting the truth of it. For what it's worth, I didn't know about your family. About Amani. I didn't know you were rich, powerful, capable of dismantling everything you built. All of that. Would it have mattered? If you had known 9 years ago? He thought about it honestly. Probably. I probably would have tried harder. Which proves your point. I would have loved the empire, not the person. Zahara stood. The hearing is in 3 days. I'm going to win. You're going to lose. And then, if you're serious about actually being a father instead of collecting an heir, we can talk about what limited, supervised access might look like. But it will be on my terms. For Kian's protection, not your ego. Fair enough. She started to walk away, then turned back. And Jasper? Call off whatever you have planned for the hearing. Don't make this uglier than it already is. You can't win, but you can choose how you lose. He nodded. She left him sitting on the bench, staring at the playground where children who knew their fathers played without complication. That night, Jasper sat in his home office while Amber packed in the bedroom. She had finally had enough. The custody battle and the corporate chaos too much for her carefully curated life. She was leaving, filing for divorce, and planning to sell her story to the tabloids for enough money to cover her debts. He didn't try to stop her. Their marriage had been a transaction, and like all bad deals, it was being liquidated. He thought about calling Richard, about crafting some final legal strategy. But Zahara's words echoed. You can choose how you lose. He picked up his phone and made a different call. Richard, withdraw the custody petition. All of it. Sir, the hearing is in 3 days. We still have a chance. No, we don't. And even if we did, I don't want to win this way. Withdraw it. I'll issue a statement taking full responsibility and apologizing to Ms. Amani. Mr. Sterling, I strongly advise. I'm not asking for advice. I'm telling you what to do. Withdraw it. He hung up. For the first time in his adult life, Jasper Sterling chose to lose gracefully. The news hit the media the next morning. Sterling withdraws custody suit, issues public apology. The statement was brief but clear. Jasper acknowledged that he had acted rashly, that Zahara was an excellent mother, and that he hoped in time to build a relationship with his son that was based on love, not legal force. Zahara read the statement in her kitchen while Kian ate cereal and talked about a science project. Mr. Okoro called immediately. It appears Mr. Sterling has surrendered. So it seems. This is a victory, Miss Amani. Yes, it is. But her voice was thoughtful, not triumphant. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that maybe he actually learned something. Maybe losing everything taught him what matters. Do you plan to allow him access to Kian? Eventually. Supervised. Limited. If he proves he's serious about being a father and not a benefactor. Kian deserves the chance to know his father. But only the version of Jasper that's capable of putting him first. Wise. As always. After the call, Zahara looked at her son, blissfully unaware of the war that had been waged over him. Hey, buddy. How would you feel about meeting someone? Someone who's related to you? Kian looked up, curious. Like a cousin? Sort of. I'll explain more later. But would you be open to it? Sure. Are they nice? I hope so. We'll find out together. Okay. And just like that, with the resilience of childhood, Kian went back to his cereal. Zahara smiled. Her son was safe. Her life, though no longer hidden, was still hers. And the man who had tried to take everything had learned that power without wisdom is just noise. The Amani family had protected its own. And Zahara had proven that the most dangerous opponent is the one who has nothing to prove until you force them to. We're about to get to the most intense part of this story. But before we do me a favor. If you're enjoying this, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. The weeks following Jasper's withdrawal were strange and uncertain. The media moved on to newer scandals. Sterling Dynamics stock stabilized as the mysterious audits and contract issues quietly resolved themselves, and Zahara returned to the rhythm of her life with Kian. But something had shifted. The secret she had guarded for 8 years was now known, at least to Jasper. And the question of what came next hung in the air like humidity before a storm. Mr. Okoro advised caution. Mr. Sterling's public surrender appears genuine, but men like him are accustomed to getting what they want. He may simply be changing tactics. I know, but I also saw something in him when we talked. Something broken. Maybe that's what needed to happen for him, to actually see clearly. Perhaps. But protect yourself and Kian first. Redemption is possible, but it must be earned, not assumed. She agreed. Which is why when Jasper called a week later asking to meet Kian, her answer was carefully structured. Supervised visits. 1 hour. In a public place. You don't get to play daddy and disappear. You show up consistently, or you don't show up at all. And the first time Kian says he's uncomfortable, we're done. I understand. Thank you, Zahara. I won't waste this chance. We'll see. The first meeting was arranged for a Saturday afternoon at a children's museum. Neutral ground. Public. Educational. Zahara had explained to Kian the night before that he had a father who wanted to meet him, that it was complicated, but that she would be there the whole time. Kian, with the adaptable curiosity of an 8-year-old, had simply asked, does he like dinosaurs? Now, watching Jasper walk toward them in the museum lobby, Zahara saw a man who looked nothing like the confident CEO who had tried to take her son. He wore jeans and a sweater, casual in a way that looked uncomfortable on him, like he was wearing a costume. His hands were shoved in his pockets, his expression nervous. Kian stood close to Zahara, peeking around her leg at the stranger. Jasper stopped a respectful distance away and crouched down to Kian's level, a gesture Zahara suspected someone had coached him on. "Hi, Kian. I'm Jasper. It's really nice to meet you." Kian looked up at Zahara. She nodded gently. He looked back at Jasper. "Hi. Do you like dinosaurs?" Jasper blinked, clearly not expecting that opening. I think they're pretty cool. Do you?" "Yeah. My favorite is the Ankylosaurus because it has armor and a club tail." "What's yours?" Jasper clearly had no idea what an Ankylosaurus was, but he recovered. "That sounds awesome. Maybe you can show me?" Kian's face lit up. He grabbed Jasper's hand with the unself-conscious trust of childhood and started pulling him toward the dinosaur exhibit. Zahara followed, her heart a complicated knot of protection and hope. She watched as Kian explained every dinosaur fact he knew, which was considerable. She watched Jasper listen, really listen, asking questions that weren't patronizing, laughing at Kian's dramatic reenactment of a T-Rex hunt. She watched her son, who had never known a father, light up at the attention from this man who was trying, however clumsily, to connect. And she watched Jasper, seeing him struggle with emotions he clearly didn't know how to process. At one point, Kian laughed at something, his whole face joyful, and Jasper's expression crumbled for just a second. A look of profound loss, of realizing what he had missed, what he had almost destroyed before it began. When the hour ended, Kian hugged Jasper goodbye without being prompted. "Can you come again?" Jasper looked at Zahara. She nodded slightly. "Yeah, buddy. I'd really like that." "Cool. Next time we can see the space exhibit. I know a lot about Mars. I can't wait." As they walked to the car, Kian chattered about everything Jasper had said and asked. Zahara listened, her emotions complicated. This was good for Kian, but it was also terrifying, because the more Jasper was in their lives, the more vulnerable they became to him. That night, after Kian was asleep, Zahara sat with a glass of wine and called her cousin Martin. "How did it go?" "Better than expected. He was actually present. Actually trying." "That's good, right?" "I think so. But Martin, what if this is just phase 1? What if he earns trust and then tries to leverage it? Then we crush him. Again." "Zahara, you hold all the cards. He knows it now. Let him try to be a father. And if he screws up, we have the power to erase him from Kian's life permanently. I don't want to have to do that. Then let's hope he's actually learned something." She wanted to believe it. She wanted to believe people could change, that loss could teach, that Jasper could become the father Kian deserved. But hope, she had learned, required vigilance. The visits continued. Every Saturday, same time, Jasper showed up early every single week. He brought books about things Kian mentioned, asked questions about school, learned to listen more than he talked. Slowly, over weeks and then months, something genuine began to form. Zahara remained cautious but couldn't deny what she was seeing. Kian was happy, and Jasper was changing. But while Zahara was cautiously allowing a thaw, another storm was building, one she didn't know about yet. Amber had not gone quietly into her divorce. She had taken the settlement, which was substantial, and then she had gone to Helix Corporation with an offer. She sat across from Marcus Voss, Helix's ruthless CEO, in a restaurant where the wine cost more than most people's rent. "You want Sterling Dynamics? I can give it to you." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Your ex-husband's company? How generous. What's the catch?" "No catch. I have information. Details about their contracts, their vulnerabilities, their dependencies. I spent 2 years as Jasper's wife. I know where the bodies are buried. And why would you betray him?" "Because he humiliated me. Because that custody disaster cost me my reputation and my marriage. And because I'm practical. You're going to take Sterling Dynamics with or without my help. With me, you do it faster and I get paid. Without me, you fight longer and I get nothing. I prefer getting paid." Marcus smiled. He liked people who were honest about their selfishness. "What do you know?" "Everything. But the most interesting piece is this. Sterling Dynamics is dependent on contracts with subsidiaries of Amani Omni Holdings. That dependence is their Achilles heel. If those contracts are disrupted, Sterling collapses. And if Sterling collapses, you can acquire it for pennies on the dollar. Amani Omni Holdings doesn't play corporate games. They're untouchable." Amber leaned forward. "They played corporate games for Zahara, Jasper's ex, the mother of his child. She's connected to Amani. I don't know how deep, but deep enough that they went to war for her. Which means if we can create a situation where helping Sterling hurts Zahara, Amani might step back. And without Amani's protection, Sterling is vulnerable. Marcus considered this. You're suggesting we use the child as leverage? I'm suggesting we create a scenario where Jasper has to choose between his company and his newfound fatherhood. And knowing Jasper, he'll choose wrong. He always does. It was ruthless. It was elegant. And it was exactly the kind of play that Marcus appreciated. Tell me everything. 2 months into the visitation arrangement, things were going well enough that Zahara agreed to unsupervised visits. Short ones. A few hours at a time. Jasper took Kian to movies, to parks, to science museums. He was awkward but sincere, and Kian, resilient and open-hearted, was forming a genuine bond with his father. Jasper found himself thinking about his son constantly. In meetings, he would remember something Kian said and smile. He started leaving work on time on Fridays because he had Saturday plans with Kian and didn't want to be tired. He found himself caring less about quarterly reports and more about whether Kian's science project on volcanoes would win the school competition. It was strange and uncomfortable, and the best thing he had ever felt. He mentioned this to his therapist, which was itself new. Therapy, something he would have scorned a year ago as weakness. Now he went twice a week, trying to understand how he had become the kind of man who would sue for custody of a child he didn't know. I think I'm actually becoming a father. How does that feel? Terrifying. What if I screw it up? What if I revert to who I was and hurt him? The fact that you're afraid of that is a good sign. It means you're aware. Awareness is the first step to actual change. I don't want to be the man I was. Then don't be. You have a choice every day. Jasper was trying. He really was. Which made what happened next even more devastating. Marcus Voss made his move on a Tuesday morning. Helix Corporation announced a hostile takeover bid for Sterling Dynamics. The offer was low, insultingly so, but backed by enough financial power to be credible. The stock price tumbled. The board panicked. And Jasper's phone started ringing off the hook. He spent 18 hours straight in emergency meetings, trying to organize a defense, trying to find white knight investors, trying to save the company his grandfather had built. By Wednesday, he had missed his scheduled call with Kian. By Thursday, he had canceled their Saturday plans because he had to fly to New York to meet with potential investors. By Friday, he was so deep in corporate warfare that he forgot to text Kian goodnight, something he had done every single night for 2 months. Zahara noticed. Of course she noticed. When Jasper finally called on Saturday afternoon to apologize for missing their museum trip, her voice was cold. Let me guess. Business crisis. Company emergency. Same song, different decade. Zahara, I'm fighting for my company's survival. Helix is trying to destroy everything I've built. And Kian is collateral damage again. No, it's not like that. I just need a few weeks to handle this, and then I'll make it up to him. You don't get to make it up. You show up, or you don't. That was the deal. This is different. This is an existential threat. To your company. Not to you. Not to Kian. You're choosing again, Jasper. Just like you always do. That's not fair, isn't it? Your company is under attack, so you drop everything, including your son. What happens next time? What happens when Kian needs you, but you have a board meeting? What happens when his school play conflicts with a merger? Jasper's frustration boiled over. You don't understand. This is my legacy. If I lose Sterling Dynamics, I lose everything. No. If you lose Kian, you lose everything. Sterling Dynamics is just a company. Kian is your son. The silence on the line was heavy. I have to go. I have a call with Tokyo in 5 minutes. Of course you do. She hung up. And she felt the familiar ache of being right about someone she had desperately wanted to be wrong about. Kian took the canceled plans with the resilience of a child who had never relied on a father before, but Zahara saw the flicker of disappointment. The hope that had been building, now cracked. She held him a little tighter that night, and promised herself she would never let Jasper hurt him again. Meanwhile, Mr. Okoro brought her troubling information. The Helix takeover bid is sophisticated and well-funded. Too well-funded. What do you mean? They have inside information. Details about Sterling's contracts, vulnerabilities, financial structures. Someone gave them a roadmap. Who? We're investigating. But Miss Amani, there's something else. Helix has been asking questions about you. About Amani Omni Holdings. About our contracts with Sterling subsidiaries. They're trying to leverage our connection. More than that. They're trying to create a scenario where helping Sterling helps Jasper, and therefore you might hesitate. They're weaponizing your personal relationship. Zahara felt cold anger settle in her chest. They're using Kian as a strategic consideration. It appears so. Find out who's feeding them information. And Mr. Okoro, Prepare a response. If Helix wants to play games with my family, they're about to learn the same lesson Jasper did. With pleasure. The investigation took less than 48 hours. Amber had been sloppy, emboldened by her hatred and greed. Financial records showed payments from Helix accounts to her personal accounts. Emails were recovered detailing the information she had provided. And most damningly, a recorded conversation where she explicitly discussed using Kian as leverage against Zahara. Mr. Okoro presented the evidence to Zahara in her gallery office. She's committed corporate espionage, breach of fiduciary duty from her time as Sterling's wife, and conspiracy. We have enough to bury her legally. Zahara read through the documents, her expression hardening with each page. Does Jasper know? Not yet. Would you like us to inform him? No. I'll tell him myself. He needs to understand the consequences of the world he built, the people he surrounded himself with. And Helix? Destroy them. Mr. Okoro smiled. Already in progress. If you're as hooked on this story as I am on telling it, hit that like button and drop a comment. What would you do if you were Zahara? Forgive Jasper or cut him off completely? Let me know below. The destruction of Helix Corporation's takeover attempt was surgical and absolute. Amani Omni Holdings activated clauses in contracts that Helix didn't even know existed, cutting off supply chains and manufacturing partnerships. Amani subsidiaries filed countersuits for corporate espionage. Regulatory bodies, prompted by anonymous tips that were anything but anonymous, launched investigations into Helix's financing. Within a week, Marcus Voss was fighting for his own company's survival instead of trying to acquire someone else's. The hostile takeover bid was withdrawn. Helix stock cratered, and Marcus was forced to resign under pressure from his own board. The message was clear. You do not threaten the Amani family. Jasper, buried in trying to save his company, didn't understand why Helix suddenly imploded. He didn't understand why his stock recovered, why contracts stabilized, why the crisis evaporated as quickly as it had appeared. He was just grateful. Until Zahara called and asked him to meet her. Not at a park. Not at a museum. At her gallery. After hours. He arrived to find the space dimly lit, artwork casting shadows on the walls. Zahara stood in the center, backlit by a single spotlight, looking like a portrait herself. Beautiful and untouchable. Thank you for meeting me. She didn't smile. Sit down, Jasper. He sat on a bench in front of a large abstract painting, suddenly nervous. Zahara, I know I messed up. I know I canceled on Kian and I've been distant. But the Helix situation, it was a crisis and I had to. She held up a hand. Stop. Just stop talking and listen. He closed his mouth. She walked slowly toward him, her heels clicking on the polished floor. The Helix takeover attempt. Do you know why it failed? We had good lawyers. The board rallied. We got lucky. No. You got saved. By me. What? She handed him a folder. He opened it to see documents detailing the Amani response to Helix. The contract terminations. The lawsuits. The regulatory attacks. All bearing the signature authority of Zahara Amani. You did this. My family did this. Because Helix threatened you, and you're the father of my child, and I won't allow anyone to use Kian as a pawn in corporate warfare. I don't understand. Why would Helix? She handed him a second folder. This one contained evidence of Amber's betrayal. The payments. The emails. The recorded conversation. Jasper's face went white as he read. Then red. Then a kind of gray that suggested nausea. Amber did this. She sold me out. She used information from our marriage to try to destroy my company. Yes. And she specifically tried to leverage your relationship with Kian to neutralize my family's protection of your contracts. She thought if she made it about choosing between your company and your son, you would choose the company, and I would let you fail. Zahara's voice was ice. And she was right, wasn't she? You did choose the company. You dropped Kian the second your business was threatened. Jasper looked up at her, something breaking in his expression. I know I did. And I hate myself for it. Hating yourself doesn't help, Kian. Being better does. How? How do I be better when this is who I am? When crisis hits, I default to protecting the business. It's all I know. Then learn something else. Or walk away from Kian's life now before you do more damage. The words hit like physical blows. You want me to leave? I want you to decide who you actually are. Are you a father who happens to run a company? Or are you a CEO who happens to have a son? Because those are different things, Jasper. And Kian deserves the first one. What if I can't be that? Then you can't be his father. Not really. The silence stretched. Jasper looked at the folders in his hands, at the evidence of his ex-wife's betrayal, at the proof that Zahara had saved him even while he was failing her son. Why did you save Sterling Dynamics? If I was choosing wrong, why did you protect me? Because Kian is starting to love you. And if you lost your company, you would blame him for it, consciously or not. You would resent the time you spent with him, the attention you gave him, the choices you made. And he would feel that. Children always do. So I saved your company to protect my son from your resentment. The analysis was brutal and absolutely correct. Jasper set the folders down and put his head in his hands. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be what he needs. Zahara's expression softened slightly. Just slightly. Start by showing up. Not when it's convenient. Not when business is slow. Every single time you say you will. Start by making him the priority. Start by understanding that the company will survive without you for a few hours, but Kian's childhood won't wait. What if I fail? You probably will. Parenting is failing and trying again. But the question is whether you fail because you're trying or fail because you're not. Jasper looked up at her. I want to try? I really do. Then prove it. Not to me. To him. How do I start? You start by calling him tonight and apologizing for missing Saturday. You start by scheduling next Saturday and showing up no matter what. You start by being the man you wish you had been 8 years ago. He nodded slowly. Okay, I can do that. We'll see. As he stood to leave, he paused. Zahara, I know sorry doesn't cover it. But I am. For all of it. For the custody suit. For not trusting you 8 years ago. For being so blind to what actually matters. Apologies are just words, Jasper. Show me with actions. I will. After he left, Zahara stood alone in the gallery, surrounded by art and silence. Mr. Okoro emerged from the back office where he had been discreetly waiting. Do you think he can actually change? I don't know. But I meant what I said. Kian deserves the chance to find out. And if Mr. Sterling fails again, then we make sure Kian knows he's loved completely by the parent who never fails him. Jasper called Kian that night. Zahara listened from the doorway of Kian's room as her son talked to his father on speakerphone. I'm sorry I missed our museum day, buddy. I had a work emergency, and I thought I had to handle it. But I was wrong. You're more important than any work emergency. It's okay. Mom said you were busy. It's not okay. I made you a promise and I broke it. That's not what good dads do. But I'm learning. And I promise I'm going to do better. Okay. Can we go next Saturday? Absolutely. Nothing will stop me. Even if my office catches on fire, I'll come to the museum straight from putting it out. Kian giggled. You'd be all sooty. Then we'd be the sootiest museum visitors ever. More giggles. Zahara felt something loosen in her chest. Maybe. Just maybe. The following Saturday, Jasper showed up. And the Saturday after that. And the one after that. Over the next 3 months, he didn't miss a single visit. He turned off his phone during their time together. He learned about Kian's friends, his favorite foods, his fears about 4th grade. He became present. Zahara watched the transformation with cautious optimism. She also watched Kian bloom under the attention of 2 parents instead of 1. But the biggest test came on a Thursday afternoon. Jasper was in a board meeting, presenting quarterly results, when his phone buzzed. He had silenced it, but he could see the screen light up. Zahara. He ignored it. She knew he was in meetings. It buzzed again. And again. Excuse me for 1 moment. He stepped out of the boardroom and called her back. Zahara, I'm in the middle of. Kian fell at school. They think his arm might be broken. We're going to the hospital. Everything else disappeared. Which hospital? Mercy General. I'm on my way. Jasper, you don't have to. I know you're working. He's my son. I'm coming. He walked back into the boardroom and addressed the board. I have to leave. Family emergency. My son is hurt. Sarah can finish the presentation. The board members exchanged glances, but no one objected. Jasper grabbed his coat and left, not caring about the numbers on the screen or the questions left unanswered. He made it to the hospital in 20 minutes, probably breaking several traffic laws. He found Zahara in the pediatric emergency ward, pacing outside an examination room. Is he okay? She looked up, surprised to see him. You left your board meeting? Of course I did. Is he okay? Fractured wrist. They're casting it now. He was very brave. Can I see him? She nodded and led him into the room. Kian sat on the examination table, his left arm in a bright blue cast, his eyes red from crying, but his expression proud. Dad. Look, I broke my arm. Jasper's throat tightened. Dad. Not Jasper. Dad. He crossed the room and hugged his son carefully. I heard. Are you okay? Does it hurt? Not anymore. They gave me medicine. And I gotta pick the color. I chose blue like the ocean. It's perfect. Jasper looked over Kian's head at Zahara. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. But it wasn't anger. It wasn't suspicion. It might have been respect. After Kian was discharged with pain medication and instructions for cast care, Jasper walked them to Zahara's car. "Thank you for calling me." "Of course. He asked for you." "He did?" "When he fell. He asked the nurse to call his mom and his dad." Something in Jasper's chest cracked open. "I'll cancel my afternoon. I can stay with you guys, help out if you need. We're okay. But you could come by this evening. Bring dinner. Kian will want to show you how he can still play video games one-handed. I'll be there at 6. See you then." As he drove back to the office, Jasper realized something fundamental had shifted. For the first time in his adult life, he had left work in the middle of something important and felt no guilt. Only rightness. He had chosen his son, and it felt like the first real choice he had ever made. That evening became a regular thing. Dinner together. Not every night, but a few times a week. It started as co-parenting logistics and evolved into something that felt almost like friendship. Jasper and Zahara began to remember why they had loved each other once. The conversations. The laughter. The ease. Kian noticed and asked Zahara one night after Jasper left, "Are you and Dad going to get married?" Zahara carefully brushed his hair back. "I don't know, sweetheart. We're figuring things out. Is that something you'd want? I just want you both to be happy. Together or not together. Just happy. The wisdom of children. We are happy. And we both love you so much." "I know." But the question stayed with her. She and Jasper had been broken people when they met the first time. Young, ambitious, unwilling to compromise. Now they were older, scarred, hopefully wiser. Could they try again? Should they? She didn't know. The question became more complicated when, 6 months after the hospital incident, Jasper showed up at the gallery on a Wednesday afternoon. No appointment. No warning. "Do you have a minute?" She led him to her office. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Everything's fine. I just needed to talk to you about something." He seemed nervous, which was unusual. "I've been offered a position. CEO of a major tech consortium in Seattle. It's huge. Triple the salary. Global influence. Everything I've ever worked toward." Zahara felt her stomach drop. "Congratulations." "I turned it down." "What?" "I turned it down. Because it would mean moving to Seattle. And I'm not doing that to Kian. I'm not becoming a weekend dad who flies in once a month. I'm not missing his childhood for a better title." "Jasper, that's a massive opportunity." "I know. And a year ago, I would have taken it without blinking. But I'm not that person anymore. Kian is here. You're here. My life is here. The job will go to someone else, and they'll do great. But there's only one Kian and only one chance to be his dad. So I'm staying." Zahara stared at him. "You really have changed." "I'm trying. Every day? Because you were right. The company will survive without me. But Kian's childhood won't wait." She felt tears threaten and blinked them away. "He's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have him. And Zahara, I'm lucky that you gave me another chance. I know I didn't deserve it. You're earning it." "I'm trying to." There was a long pause. Then Jasper took a breath. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you think there's any chance, any possibility, that we could try again? Not rush. Not force it. Just see if what we had before could be rebuilt into something better?" Zahara considered the question. The man in front of her was not the man she had left 8 years ago. He was humbler, wiser, present. He had been broken and rebuilt. He had learned what mattered. And she had changed too. She had stepped into her power. She had stopped hiding. She had learned to fight for what she loved. Maybe they could build something new. Not what they were, but what they could be. "I don't know, Jasper. I really don't. But I'm not saying no. That's more hope than I expected. Let's just take it slow. Keep doing what we're doing. Keep showing up for Kian. And see where it goes. I can do slow. Can you though?" He laughed. "I'm learning." As he left, Zahara sat in her office and let herself imagine possibilities. A family, whole and healed, built on ashes and rebuilt into something stronger. Maybe. 3 months later, Amber's trial began. She was charged with corporate espionage, conspiracy, and fraud. The evidence was overwhelming, provided in part by Amani's legal team and in part by Helix Corporation, who had turned on her to save themselves. Jasper attended the trial, not out of vindictiveness, but out of a need to see that chapter close. Zahara went with him for support. They watched as Amber, once polished and imperious, sat at the defendant's table looking smaller and harder. Her lawyer argued for leniency. The prosecutor, armed with recordings and financial records, argued for the maximum sentence. In the end, Amber was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution. As she was led away, she looked at Jasper one last time. No apology. Just cold assessment. She had gambled and lost. That was all. Outside the courthouse, Jasper exhaled. I married her for all the wrong reasons. I know. She was everything I thought I wanted. Polished. Connected. Ambitious. But she was never real. Not like you. Zahara looked at him. I'm not perfect either, Jasper. No. But you're real. And you're here. So are you. They walked to the car together. Hands almost touching, but not quite. Not yet. The real turning point came on Kian's 9th birthday. Zahara planned a party at the gallery, turning it into an art adventure for Kian and his friends. Jasper helped set up, hanging decorations and organizing supplies, comfortable in a way he never would have been a year ago. As the party unfolded, Zahara watched Jasper teach a group of kids how to mix paint colors, his expensive shirt covered in handprints, his laughter genuine and unguarded. He looked happy, truly happy. Mr. Okoro appeared beside her. He has changed. Yes, he has. The question is, have you forgiven him? Zahara watched Jasper swing Kian onto his shoulders, careful of the boy's long-heeled wrist, both of them laughing. I think I'm getting there. Your grandfather would approve. He always said the best revenge is allowing someone to become better than they were. Is that what this is? Revenge? No, it's grace. Which is harder. After the party, after the kids went home and the gallery was cleaned, the three of them sat together eating leftover cake. Best birthday ever, Kian announced through a mouthful of frosting. Yeah? Yeah. I got a microscope from Mom and a telescope from Dad, and we're all together. That's all I wanted. Jasper and Zahara looked at each other across the table. Something passed between them. A decision that didn't need words. Later, after Kian was asleep in Zahara's apartment upstairs, Jasper prepared to leave. Thank you for today. For letting me be part of it. You're his father. You'll always be part of it. And what about us? She stepped closer. I think we're figuring it out. Can I kiss you? She smiled. You can try? He did. Tentatively at first, then deeper, remembering and discovering all at once. When they pulled apart, Zahara rested her forehead against his. Slow, she reminded him. Slow, he agreed. But it didn't stay slow. How could it? They had wasted 8 years. They had fought and hurt each other and learned and grown. They had a son who loved them both. They had a foundation now, built on honesty instead of illusion. 6 months later, Jasper proposed. Not with a spectacle, not with a billboard or a flash mob. Just the three of them on a Saturday afternoon at the park where they had first met after the custody suit was dropped. He got down on one knee in front of Kian and Zahara. I know I did everything wrong the first time. I know I hurt you, and I know I almost lost the two best things in my life. But I've spent the last year and a half learning how to be better, learning how to be present, learning what matters. And what matters is you too. So Zahara, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving I'm the man you and Kian deserve? Zahara looked at her son. What do you think, buddy? Kian grinned. I think yes. She looked back at Jasper, at this man who had been broken and rebuilt, who had chosen them over everything else, who showed up every single day. Then yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, and they kissed while Kian cheered. Families in the park applauded. And for the first time in a decade, Zahara felt complete. The wedding was small. Family and close friends. Held at the gallery, surrounded by art and light. Kian was the ring bearer, serious and proud. Mr. Okoro walked Zahara down the aisle, having earned the honor through years of protection and guidance. Jasper's vows were simple. I promise to show up. I promise to choose you and Kian every single day. I promise that no company, no deal, no ambition will ever matter more than this family. I promise to be the man you made me want to become. Zahara's vows matched his honesty. I promise to trust you with my heart again. I promise to build this life with you as partners. I promise that our son will always know he is loved by two parents who chose each other and chose him. I promise to remind you of what matters when the world tries to distract you. They were pronounced husband and wife. They kissed. And Kian ran up to hug them both, sandwiched between his parents, exactly where he belonged. At the reception, Mr. Okoro gave a toast. I have known Zahara since she was a child. I have watched her grow into a woman of extraordinary strength and grace. When Jasper Sterling first threatened this family, I confess I wanted to destroy him. But Zahara taught me something. She taught me that true power is not destruction. It is transformation. She took a man who was broken and gave him the chance to rebuild. She protected her son while allowing his father to grow. That is not weakness. That is the strongest thing I have ever witnessed. To Zahara and Jasper, may your marriage be built on the foundation of your failures and the strength of your choices. Everyone raised their glasses. Before we wrap up this incredible story, I need you to do something for me. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, smash that like button and subscribe to Love Tales by Mr. Grayson. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment and tell me what you think. Your engagement helps me keep bringing you stories like this. A year after the wedding, Sterling Dynamics merged with an Amani subsidiary, creating a new entity focused on ethical technology and sustainable business practices. Jasper stepped back from CEO to focus on strategic vision, working 3 days a week and spending the rest of his time with his family. Zahara opened a second gallery, this one focused on emerging artists from underrepresented communities. She used Amani resources to fund scholarships and programs, no longer hiding her wealth, but wielding it purposefully. Kian thrived. He had 2 parents who showed up to every school event, who helped with homework, who tucked him in at night. He never knew the struggle it took to get there. He just knew he was loved. One evening, the 3 of them sat on their balcony watching the sunset. Kian was doing homework. Jasper was reading a book, his hand holding Zahara's. She leaned against him, content. "Do you ever think about how close we came to missing this?" he asked quietly. "Every day? I was such an idiot." "Yes, you were." He laughed. "Thank you for giving me another chance. Thank you for earning it." Kian looked up from his math homework. "Are you guys being mushy again?" "Absolutely," Jasper confirmed. "Gross." But Kian was smiling. That night, after Kian was asleep, Zahara and Jasper stood in his doorway watching him. "We did good," Zahara whispered. "You did good. I just finally caught up. We did it together." And that was the truth. Separately, they had been broken, powerful, but incomplete. Together, they had built something that wealth couldn't buy and power couldn't take. A family, whole and real and hard-won. The story that had begun with a custody suit and a threat had ended with grace and transformation. Jasper had learned that true wealth is measured in presence, not possessions. Zahara had learned that power wielded with mercy is the strongest power of all. And Kian had learned that love, even when it's complicated, even when it requires forgiveness and growth, is always worth fighting for. Years later, when Kian was older and asked about how his parents got together, they told him the truth. About the mistakes, about the custody battle, about the fortune his mother commanded and the empire his father nearly lost, about the choices that almost destroyed them and the choices that saved them. "So you guys had a fight and Mom won?" Kian summarized with teenage bluntness. Jasper laughed. "Pretty much." Zahara corrected gently. "We both won, because we both chose what mattered." "Which was?" "You," Jasper and Zahara said together. "And each other," Zahara added, squeezing her husband's hand. Kian rolled his eyes with the practiced dismissiveness of a teenager, but he was smiling. Because he knew. He had always known. He was loved completely by 2 people who had fought their way back to each other and to him. And in the end, that was the only empire that mattered. Not the billions. Not the companies. Not the power that could dismantle corporations or reshape industries. Just a family, built from ashes, forged in fire, and stronger for having survived. Zahara stood on the balcony of their home, looking out at the city lights, thinking about the journey that had brought her here. The girl who had hidden her wealth to be loved for herself. The woman who had walked away rather than accept half-hearted love. The mother who had gone to war to protect her child. The wife who had chosen grace over vengeance. Jasper came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything. Nothing. How lucky we are. We are lucky. But we also worked for this." "Yes, we did. Do you ever regret it? Giving me another chance?" She turned in his arms. "Every time you leave dishes in the sink." He laughed. "Fair. But no, I don't regret it. You became the man I always hoped you could be. You made me want to be better. You made yourself better. I just gave you a reason. Best reason I ever had." They stood together in the quiet. 2 people who had learned the hard way that love without presence is just a word, that power without purpose is hollow, that wealth means nothing compared to a child's laughter and a partner's trust. The billionaire CEO and the heiress. The custody battle that became a corporate war that became a transformation. The story that could have ended in bitterness, but instead ended in grace. Because Zahara had taught Jasper what real power looked like. Not money, not control, but the strength to choose love when ambition called. The courage to be present when the world demanded your absence. The wisdom to know that the only legacy that truly matters is the one you build in the hearts of the people you love. And Jasper had finally learned the lesson. Not because he was forced, but because he was given the space to choose. And he chose right. Their empire wasn't Sterling Dynamics or Amani Omni Holdings. It was the family they built together, the son they raised, the love they fought for and earned and protected. That was power. That was wealth. That was everything. And now, as we close this story, I want to hear from you. What did you take away from Zahara and Jasper's journey? Have you ever had to choose between ambition and love? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, do me a huge favor. Like this video, subscribe to Love Tales by Mr. Grayson, and share it with someone who needs to hear that transformation is possible, that people can change, and that love, when fought for with honesty and grace, can heal even the deepest wounds. Until next time, remember that the most powerful thing you can do is choose what truly matters. And choose it every single day.